lot of people haven't not known is that there is a weird thing that's happening where Governor Ron DeSantis just signed into law uh, about a little over a month ago, where he actually is now allowing radioactive material being used in the paving of Florida roads. Why is this important? Well, because your health is important, right? So let's go to the story here. And this gives a good synopsis of exactly everything that's happening. So it says DeSantis signs bill allowing new roads to be built with mining waste linked to cancer. So let's go over this. This is going to be really wild. It says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill on Thursday that would allow new roads in the state to be built with radioactive mining waste that has been linked to cancer. House Bill 1191 adds phosphogypsum to a list of recyclable materials that can be used for the construction of roads. That list also includes ground rubber from car tires, ash residue from coal combustion byproducts, recycled mixed plastic, glass, and construction steel. Phosphogypsum is a waste product from manufacturing fertilizer, emits radon, a radioactive gas, according to the EPA. The material also contains radioactive elements such as uranium, thorium, and radium. Radon is second to smoking as the leading cause of lung cancer. So hold up. Let's stop there for a second. You mean to tell me that a gas that's emitted that also contributes to lung cancer is now going to be put into our roads? It's already enough that our roads pollute already with the onset of things like asphalt and, petroleum products. But now you're adding radon to it as well. And don't some of these things release gases the more it gets heated? And we're literally seeing some of the hottest temperatures on record as far as our climate is concerned. Should we be concerned about this? And my other question is, when it comes to roads like this, as far as these roads that will be built with these types of chemicals in it, and these carcinogens that are embedded within it, how many of these roads will be in more poorer neighborhoods versus the more affluent neighborhoods? Are they going to be able to know which one is which? Is it going to be blanketed just throughout the state, or is it going to be just in certain neighborhoods like the ones with people who look like me? That's something I'm wondering. So let's continue, because this is wild. It says the gas has been linked to 21,000 lung cancer deaths every year in the U.S., according to the EPA. It says the agency previously confirmed to CBS News that the mining waste leftover material from phosphate rock is potentially cancer-causing. The material is stored in gypstack systems in an effort to prevent it from coming in contact with people and the environment. Here's my question. If it is prevented from coming into contact with people, right? If you guys are storing it so it doesn't come in contact with people, why in the world would you put it in contact with people? Make that make sense. If it's dangerous, why put it in contact with people in the first place? So you keep it away from people, but now you're saying, well, let's just put it in the material that we use to make our roads, where our kids walk to and from school by every day, right? Where people will be walking, people who are disabled, people that are healthy, no matter who. Aren't some of these same road materials some of the same materials that we use to pave near parks, or hell, say a basketball court, parking lots where people live, parking lots where people shop? So we're literally going to put this all up and around people, and you're saying, oh, nah, it's fine. Even though we literally have to store it away from people. So now you're going to put it in our roads. All around us. It's crazy. This is wild. And this goes to show how people like Ron DeSantis don't actually care. And if you're a conservative and if you care about hunting, fishing, going out into the woods, being one with nature, this should concern you. If you were talking about the problems with the pandemic and how you didn't want the jab, right? And how you were skeptical and looking at a side eye at the pharmaceutical industrial complex, and yet you're not outraged about this, I need you to take a second look. Because they're literally putting chemicals like this around us. And no smoke for Ron DeSantis on this one? Let's continue. It says the bill also noted that the state's Department of Transportation will have to conduct a study to evaluate the suitability of its use, adding that it may consider any prior or ongoing studies of phosphogypsum's road suitability and the fulfillment of this duty. So it says the department study must be completed by April 1st of next year. It says phosphate mining has been an ongoing problem in the state in recent decades. In 2021, a breach at Piney Point, the former phosphate mining facility in Manatee County, resulted in 215 million gallons of water with environmentally toxic levels of nutrients ending up in Tampa Bay area within a 10-day span. In the statement, Florida and Caribbean director and attorney of the Center for Biological Diversity, Elise Bennett, said that the bill is reckless handout to the fertilizer industry. It says Governor DeSantis is paving the way for toxic legacy generations of Floridians will have to grapple with. This opens the door for dangerous radioactive waste to be dumped in roadways across the state, under the guise of a so-called feasibility study that won't address serious health and safety concerns. So this is what's going on right now in the state that I live in, right? So think about this. On the street that I live in, it's 20, 25 feet away from the road. Not to mention the parking lot right here that is paved. So you're going to put me and my neighbors and the children in my family at risk to save a few dollars? Make that make sense. Continuously putting us at risk. And it's already enough that, you have, a lot of rich people who have health care. They don't necessarily have to live that close to the street. Even still, if somebody's affluent with money, who's to say that they're not going to use this certain type of mix of asphalt on their streets. In some of the more affluent parts of Orlando, you go down the street, it's a brick road. It's not paved with asphalt. It's brick in some of these streets that are more affluent. And so this is what's scary about it. Part of me thinks the affluent in Orlando, particularly the people that live in places like Windermere and Isleworth, and give or take Winter Park, they're gonna go, yeah, no, we're cool, you know. Or if you guys go to like you know, in West Palm Beach, you know, the rich people that live over there too, maybe even the villages, but they'll say, yeah, no, we don't want that over there. You guys can use it, but you guys just can't use it here. And so whose neighborhoods is it really going to be put into? Like, they literally spent $23 million in not only repaving, but also extending the road behind me. They spent $23 million. And it took, what, 2 years to redo and extend that road? It's not even that long. It's like half a mile. So they did all that. What if they put that certain type of asphalt and, you know, with this phosphogypsum in it? What if they had it in there? Couldn't that affect? Couldn't it have implications on all the people within my neighborhood, health-wise, that will affect us in the long term? What about the little kids? A lot of these little kids have to walk past that road, along these roads, every single day to go to the local elementary school. And they have to walk past there even in the summer heat. Like, what's the temperature today? Right now, it's 89 degrees. And it's only 89 because it's cloudy. It's 89 degrees right now, with the horrible ass humidity. Plus, asphalt actually gets hotter. I don't know if you've ever been barefoot on asphalt. It burns. By the way, if you have pets, if you're walking your dog, don't walk them on asphalt, and especially on a hot day. I put it this way: if it's past 80 degrees, keep them off asphalt. It gets super hot, and you can literally burn your dog's feet, their paws on hot asphalt. It is horrible. Anywho, but that's beside the point. But the thing is, this asphalt gets to a high temperature, meaning that these gases can be released. So you have little kids walking along the road, and then on top of it, it releases that gas. And 5 days a week, twice a day, that means they're being exposed 10 times in a week to these types of chemicals. To kids who have to walk to school. And there's hundreds that we see walking to and from school, because apparently if you're less than 2 miles from school, you either have to be ridden in a car by your parent, or, gosh, you have to walk. And I remember, because I had to. So there's some of these questions, these same questions that I'm asking, that require some answers. And let's take a look at what they say here.
Mitch, Marky, good morning. When you first hear this headline, you kind of think to yourself, huh? So naturally, there is some pushback, and that's why people are calling on help from the governor. But bottom line, people behind the wheel want to know what they're actually driving on.
The wheels of change are in motion. Florida lawmakers want to use radioactive material to pave roads in the future. That material is phosphogypsum, a waste product from manufacturing fertilizer that emits radon, a radioactive gas.
Any given.
So, first of all, I want you guys to look at this. See this gentleman here? You have to heat. You have to heat up the asphalt in order to apply it to the road. You see all that smoke coming up that he's breathing in, he's taking into his lungs. This is also a worker issue. You mean to tell me that if I'm a road construction worker, you mean to tell me that you're going to allow this for me to breathe it in? Oh, hell no. 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 This is so wrong, bro. This is so wrong. Workers, especially road construction workers, should be outraged. They should be. How in the hell are you going to allow this? Now, of course, they're doing a study first to see how safe it is. But the thing is, like, it shouldn't have been passed in the first place. Radon? You're going to subject me to breathing in radon? I'm trying not to cuss.
That material is phosphogypsum, a waste product from manufacturing fertilizer that emits radon, a radioactive gas.
Any given place has such a small concentration of the phosphogypsum itself that there's no real harm or risk to the public.
House Bill 1191 allows Florida's Department of Transportation to study using phosphogypsum in projects to determine its feasibility as a paving material. The bill gives the DOT until April 1st, 2024 to complete its research and make its recommendation.
I think people might misunderstand or misconstrue just the level of radiation of a product like this.
Several countries in Europe, Asia, and Africa already repurpose the radioactive material. In the United States, the EPA requires phosphogypsum be stored in piles called gypsum stacks, right?
Just because other countries do it, just because somebody jumps off a bridge doesn't mean we should do it. I'm saying. Because if it has radioactive material, just because they got it, they do it in their country, doesn't mean we have to do it here. We already have enough pollutants in our environment as it is. There's a reason why they keep this stuff away from people.
Piles called gypsum stacks. Right now, there are 25 stacks stored in Florida, amounting to more than 1 billion tons.
Considering that Florida is the largest volume gypsum producing territory in the country, I think pretextual positive that's not being emphasized is the benefit to Florida's economy.
Advocates of the move say this is the first step in the phosphate industry's push to use the waste in roads nationwide, though some conservation groups say it's dangerous.
And if there are alternatives that are safer, that don't need the testing and don't bring with them the uncertainty that we're talking about, why not consider those?
My question is, why do we have to use this? And on top of it, you have the fertilizer industry that's trying to sell this because they want to make more money, honestly, because it's a byproduct. And it's a way to make more profit. Should we even have a fertilizer industry in the first place? Like, I'm thinking, like, no, we shouldn't even have a fertilizer industry. I know people are going to look at me like I'm crazy. Like, well, what do you mean we shouldn't have a fertilizer industry? I don't think we should. I think that we should have a nationalized fertilizer industry that provides fertilizer to, to plant our food. Because the thing is that they're going to use the profit motive in order to make money off of a byproduct that is not usable for them. And so then they're going to sell it to the state, not the state. They're going to sell it to these companies to use in our roads instead so that they can make a profit off of it. But at whose expense is this going to be made a profit off of? It's not going to be at their expense. They're making profit off of it. It's going to be at our expense. It's going to be our health care that's at risk. It's going to be our lives.
And we reached out to Governor Ron DeSantis' office, and he said they responded by saying the governor will decide on the merits of the bill once they are delivered to the governor's office. So 11 months, or a little less than 11 months, for studies on what this material could possibly do.
Thank you for watching. Go to News Nation.
I honestly don't even think studies is feasible. Because if you had to keep it away from people, then that tells you everything you need to know. What is there to study if you already know that it has cancer-causing agents in it? That's what irritates the hell out of me. So they get a little bit deeper into it. And it doesn't make me feel better. Even if they're saying, yes, we can just study it, it doesn't make me feel better at all. Let's continue.
Now, for more on that, we're going to bring in environmental medicine specialist, Dr. Lisa Levine-Nodge. Good morning, doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, radioactive, it sounds bad, but is it? What do you think?
Well, there are other products or other concerns besides the radioactivity, and there are nanoparticles. There are radon daughters, I guess, and those can stick as a solid to dust, and you can inhale the dust, and that radon gives you lung cancer. It's the second greatest cause of lung cancer besides smoking.
That's not making me feel better. It's not. So now it can stick to the dust, and then you can inhale that dust, and then what? It's not making me feel any better. Nah, dog. It's not making me feel better at all.
So the heavy metals, there are other things that are bound that are potentially released. And I think that we're not really considering the whole picture, and a year is probably not long enough to study the effects on humans, obviously, but to study the effect of the road feasibility to work as a product.
Well, Xavier mentioned that this is a thing in other countries, and I just kind of wonder if there are results from other countries where this is already being used or being put into roads, and if there are studies that maybe the Department of Transportation can look at there.
Well, there are a couple of other countries. I was looking this up, and China is one of them. And we don't really want to follow in the footsteps of China in terms of toxic exposure. Remember the benzene?
They talk about China, yet we sell Doritos, stovetop stuffing, and Mountain Dew in this country, and Europe doesn't even allow those products to be sold. I don't think the United States has any room to talk. Go ahead, look it up. Yeah, stovetop stuffing can't get it in Europe. And if you can, then a lot of the ingredients that they put in theirs are not the same. Mountain Dew, And these are foods that we get sold. And let's be real. If China's using it, then they're wrong too. But just because they're doing it doesn't mean that we have to. Since when? Fuck it, let me continue.
In the river. So, you want to follow countries that are highly concerned about the health of the individuals and in the population. So,
but China also has universal health care. See how they mix in some Western propaganda? They kind of mix it in a little bit. They'll be like, well, China does this, so we can't be like China. Yet China also has universal health care. So, make that make sense?
I think that we really have to lead on our own. And I would say that the precautionary principle is the leading principle that we go by. When the scientific information is not available, then we err on the side of caution, and lawmakers are not qualified to make these decisions. I think that it really has to be scientists and physicians working together.
Well, and Xavier.
But my question is, when it comes to things like this, why aren't we having scientists that actually are making decisions based on the science? Oh, well, isn't that because then you make it so that if you do have scientists that are going by the science, you have some that are being influenced monetarily so that they can be on the side of the corporations? Shouldn't we have independent scientists? Well, we do, but at the same time, some of those independent scientists are also being influenced by corporations as well. So they're going to take the side of the corporations, even though they may be within the EPA. I mean, want to talk about the FDA and the Sackler family? Yeah. Yeah, so my thing is, like, as far as scientists go, they should not be able to get any type of benefits whatsoever from any of these companies or corporations. The problem is that a lot of times they're allowed to, or there's ways around it. So then by the time, it's time for us to see what they think regarding the science, they will skew things so that it makes it so that they can enact policies like this instead. Or the lawmakers will just listen to the lobbyists. It's just crazy, man.
You did mention that this bill does not say, hey, we're going to start doing this right now. This bill says it is a bill to commission or compel a study to figure out if this is useful. So you just think that study will eventually turn up that this isn't a good idea and maybe this will be a moot point?
Before she answers, I'm going to say no. Because ultimately, Big Fertilizer is going to want to make sure this goes through so that they can make more money. And as we all know, that somebody like Ron DeSantis, he's with the side of the corporations. You and I both know that that's what it is. I have a feeling that by the time we reach this time next year, it's going to be approved. They're going to start paving our roads with this mess. And then guess what? We're going to be breathing this stuff in, and it's just going to deliver us hell in a handbasket here in Florida. And then on top of it, because Ron DeSantis allows this bullshit to happen, guess what? In other states, it's going to start happening too. Places like Texas, places like South Carolina, places like Louisiana, especially in the southern states where it gets even hotter. Guess what? Or where it's hotter for longer, we're going to have these road construction crews that are putting down this radon gas releasing asphalt into the road. And guess what? We're going to be affected by it. All because Some companies want to make more money. Oh, jeez, Louise. I hate this timeline.
Doubtful, because the pressures in Florida will be too much in the other direction. And I think this study is a physical study. It's not looking at the information on a piece of paper. They want to study it, I believe, in practice. And so they're going to have workers exposed in order to put the materials down on the roads. And when you read about wind damage and water damage and heat to products like this, they will potentially release more at 140 degrees, it said, than at 70 degrees. So you can study this, but still the workers who are doing it will be exposed as they're doing it.
Are the workers and the people that travel on the potentially radioactive roads, do they have the risk of becoming sort of guinea pigs here?
Actually, I thought of mentioning this. Think of road rage. Think of Los Angeles and the diesel fumes and the heat make people crazy. And that's probably why road rage exists. So if you look at toxic exposure and the effect on the brain and behavior, do you really want to put more things on the road that may outgas and cause toxicity to the brain, as per what the American Academy of Environmental Medicine would say, and make people feel worse acutely? Whether they get cancer in 20 years may not be the main concern. It may be the short-term effects of becoming chemically sensitive, chemically exposed. We don't know, and you could just judge that this is a financial decision.
Thank you for watching.
It's always a financial decision. Always. But at whose expense? Look, shout out to Noah from Midwestern Marks. One of the things that was taught to me in the basics in Marxism class is always ask this question: who benefits? It won't be us. And they'll say, well, it could probably be cheaper. For whom, though? I beg to differ. That if we were to actually go for what's cheaper, more cost effective for us as tax-paying citizens. Yeah, she demonized China for having some of the same things in their roads. But let me ask you this. Are they making their culture into a nation of car drivers? Now, back then, you can say in places, especially places like Beijing, yeah, it was a shit ton of cars on the road. But that was years ago. What about now? Let me share something with you guys really quick. And okay. I could have swore I had it. Oh, wait. Okay. I didn't put it up there. Let me see. I hope I don't get a copy. I hope we don't get a copyright strike for this one. I don't think so. Actually, you know what? Okay. So let me show you guys this. This is what China has.
Another one. We got another one coming, look. Here's our train. There's the one on the other side, look. It's getting ready to leave over there. And here comes the through train, look. Look, here we go, Isla. Here it comes, look at this. Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And it's, well, it's gone.
And that's just the one on rails. We're not talking about the maglevs. $24,000 miles of rail. 24,000 miles of high-speed rail that crisscrosses China. 24,000. Let me show you this. How much is 24,000 miles? The circumference of the earth is 24,901 miles. China has about as much high-speed rail as it can circle the entire planet. So when we talk about things like, well, China also has these chemicals too, it's not really the same because they're more trying to utilize more public transit to move their people than what we're doing is just by manufacturing more cars. Oh, we can actually put in, electric vehicles. You can have your own personal electric car. Meanwhile, we're mining for all the lithium and lithium mines, which also means that we would actually have to use imperialism in order to get the lithium out of these mines, number one. Number two, you still have to pave these roads with asphalt, which also can be an environmental issue. And it's also environmentally invasive. You also have to manufacture more cars. And it's going to be more expensive for us overall. Versus having more high-speed mass transit like what China's doing. So really, if you look at it, they're literally mitigating the use of having to build more cars, having to pave more roads. So because they're doing that, it's actually better for the environment. Don't forget, China got scientists too. And on top of it, because the dominant party in China, the Chinese Communist, the Communist Party of China, the CPC, they are more likely to go, you know what? We want to do things for the people outside the realm of profits. So how is this going to affect us in the long term? And so this is why they're focused more on high-speed public transit. While we're talking about cost, how much are you paying for gas? Number one. How much is your maintenance costs on your car? 2. Number 3. How much is your insurance? If we didn't have to worry about car payment, gas, insurance, maintenance, if we didn't have to worry about those things, then great. But unfortunately, because you live in the system, you have to worry about those things. But what if you can have a transit system that means that you won't necessarily need to have your personal vehicle anymore? What if, let's say hypothetically, because a friend of mine and I were talking about this. Let's say hypothetically, they built, maglev high-speed train systems that crisscross the country, right? Let's say they built a maglev train. Maglev trains can go upwards of 300 miles an hour, right? You can take a maglev train. Let's say you start off in New York. You have a stop in Chicago, and you take it all the way to Los Angeles. You can get from there, give or take 18 hours, from New York to Los Angeles. Probably shorter time. But I'm actually giving it, a little span of time, because from New York to LA on a jet and the cruising speeds around 550, it's about 4 hours, right? So me saying 18 hours to get from New York to LA with a stop in Chicago, that's great. That's wonderful. You probably can get there in about 9-10 hours. And that's with slowdowns between stops. What if we had that? What if I can get from here to Rochester in 4 to 5 hours on a high-speed maglev train? Let's make it an express. Stops in Orlando, or no, it goes from Miami all the way up, right? Miami through Orlando, all the way up 95 to Rochester. This would decrease the need for cars on the road. This would decrease the need for auto insurance. This would decrease the need for fuel. We wouldn't even need to manufacture or mine any lithium or as much lithium. If somebody wanted to have an electric car, we wouldn't need to mine or manufacture much iron or aluminum, whatever metals that they use in cars, plastic, vinyl. Wouldn't need to. And meaning we will be able to have more walkable cities. And it will actually be more environmentally safe. So ultimately, the question is, why in the world, how can we prevent from using this in our road construction so that we don't get sick? How do we make it so that we won't ever have to consider this ever again? How about we make it so that we just change the culture, period, so that we won't have to even use asphalt anymore to create roads? We can just do that. But no, we can't. Because there's certain industries, particularly the fossil fuel industry, that wants us to continue to use asphalt on roads. Hell, even using concrete for roads is actually more cheaper. Not cheaper. It is more cost effective. The average duration, and somebody did some research on this. The average maintenance duration to replace a asphalt road is once every 10 years. The duration to replace a concrete road is every 40. Even though it's more expensive, over time, you don't have to maintenance and replace it as often. So it's cheaper. But even still, we don't have to do all that. So, yeah, this is one of the reasons why the system needs to be changed, period. The system needs an overhaul. What's the purpose for a car? To get to point A to point B, right? To carry yourselves. And sometimes you may need to carry things in your car in order to get to point A to point B, which I get, right? But for the most part, it's to carry yourself. But what if you don't need to have a personal car to do that? What if you could just use mass transit? Maybe, just maybe, we can have a culture where we don't need to transport ourselves in an individualistic way in order to get to where we need to go. China is on the forefront of that. Maybe we should be more like them in that regard. But yeah, these are some of the dangers of having this type of material. This is from the EPA. It says radioactive material from fertilizer production. Phosphate rock mining is the 5th largest mining industry in the United States in terms of the amount of material mined. Hang on, let me enlarge this. It says about 90% of phosphate is mined in Florida, North Carolina, and Tennessee. It says about radioactive material from fertilizer production. Phosphate rock contains the mineral phosphorus, an ingredient used in some fertilizers to help plants grow strong roots. Phosphate rock contains small amounts of naturally occurring radionuclides. Radionuclides, mostly uranium and radium. When processing phosphate rock to make fertilizer, the phosphorus is removed by dissolving the rock in an acid solution. The waste is left behind, called phosphogypsum. Most of the naturally occurring uranium, thorium, and radium found in phosphate rock ends up in this waste. Uranium and thorium decay to radium, and radium decays to radon, a radioactive gas. Because the wastes are concentrated, phosphogypsum is more radioactive than original phosphate rock. So they want to put phosphogypsum in the roads. See? It says the waste that is created during fertilizer production is stored in large piles called stacks. Some stacks cover hundreds of acres and are hundreds of feet high. In the aerial photo, you can see the top of the phosphogypsum stack is covered in water. As you can see, it's kind of blurry, but this is the stack, right? Okay. Says phosphogypsum is very watery when it's first put on a stack. As the phosphogypsum dries out, a crust forms on the stack. The crust thickens over time, reducing the amount of radon that can escape and helping keep the waste from blowing in the wind. Some of the water can leak out the bottom and pollute local groundwater. It says phosphogypsum stacks are located on private property away from people. Unless you're visiting a facility, you will not encounter a phosphogypsum stack. If you are visiting a facility, always follow posted safety messages. And yet, They want to put this in our roads. So yeah, that's what's going on here in Florida. And ultimately, this is going to have the biggest impact on those of us who are marginalized, those of us who are disabled, many Black people in the Black community and brown communities, poor white people too. It's going to affect us all, especially a lot of us. All because some companies want to make more profit.